Today we're going to start my Halloween and fall videos. Today's video is going to be a pumpkin cake with cream cheese frosting. The design is going to be a cross-stitch Mickey pumpkin head. This design is completely optional, you can leave it off. First off, we're going to start by making our own pumpkin puree. You're going to need 2 pumpkins, a bowl to put your seeds in, a knife, and a sheet pan. You can always skip this step and just buy the pumpkin puree in a can. But if you want to make your own, just follow along with this. Start by removing the top of it and then cut them in half. Remove all the seeds and guts inside of these pumpkins, and on a sheet pan lined with foil, we are going to bake these in an oven. Bake these in the oven at 350 degrees for about an hour and a half. These specific pumpkins I purchased at Trader Joe's. They are the pumpkin pie. So I got 2 of them, and 2 of them made a little over 2 cups. And you're just going to need 1 cup of the puree for this recipe. I used the other part of it to make pumpkin pie, which a video will be coming out next week for that. So keep an eye out for it. Then place these with the inside down on the pan. And you're going to cover them with another big sheet of foil and then put these in the oven. You can always check when they're ready by poking them with a knife or fork or anything, and if they're tender, they're ready. Now just scrape out the pumpkin off the shell or the skin, and you can mash them by hand, or if you have a food processor, just use that to process and mash these pumpkin insides together. Then you're going to take all your dry ingredients, so your flour, your baking powder, your baking soda, salt, cinnamon, and pumpkin spice. And you're going to combine this all well, and then cream your butter and sugar together. And once that's well incorporated and fluffy, you're going to add your eggs in, 1 at a time. Make sure to combine these well. And then pour in your cup of pumpkin puree in there and combine that well. Don't forget to scrape your bowl. And then we're going to do 3 portions of our flour mixture and 2 portions of our milk. So start with your flour and always end with your flour. Once all this is combined well, you're going to need a 9-inch cake pan. I like to butter it and then put a parchment paper on it, so this helps it not stick and it's easier to remove. I as well like to use an ice cream scoop, as you can see here, to scoop in my cake. Once your cake batter is in your pan, just stick it in the oven at 350 degrees, and this is going to bake about 22 to 25 minutes. All depends on your oven. You can always check with a toothpick or skewer, and if it comes out clean, you know it's ready. Once the cake was cool enough, I just removed the top bump on it to even it out. And here I just got some cheese cream, buttercream frosting. I will leave a recipe below in the description box for this as well. And as you can see here, I just spread a crumb coat on this cake, so just a nice thin layer of frosting on the top and sides, and then just chill it in the fridge for about 10 to 15 minutes just to let the frosting harden a bit. while that chills, prepare your other colors that you're gonna need. So we're gonna use orange, yellow, black, and green. Make sure you have more orange than all the other colors since that is the majority. And then black as your second majority color. Once I incorporated all these colors, I just put them in a piping bag with a #1 tip for a better, smaller piping, which is what we're gonna need for this. And then I took this cross-stitch square plastic stuff and used that as my cross-stitch guide on my cake. And while the cake was cold, I just placed it on top and put the grid. And here, as you can see, I have a grid outline of my drawing that I'm gonna be using to help me kind of figure out where to start and everything. I do recommend though, since this did come out a little lower, I did count 5 spaces from the bottom. But if you want to do a little more, maybe 8 or 10, this will leave your cake a little higher since mine wasn't as centered. But just try to figure out where you want your cake to be and how to center it, and it will look great. And as you can see here in the little squares, I put little X's to make it look like a cross stitch. This part of the cake is going to take some patience. It did take me about an hour or 2 to finish this just because I do get a little shaky and I do need to take a moment when piping. But if you have your patience and if you love intricate things, this cake is perfect for you and the outcome just looks amazing. And then the technique I used, as you can see, is I split my pumpkin in half. So I started on one half and then I continued on the other. I wanted to try to get the majority of the black over, so when I piped my orange and other colors, it overlaid with the black and looked a little better. That's just my personal way. You can pipe this however you like. And then this here is also another technique I started to use to count my squares, is I just put one line through each box in the row and then I cross them off with the other line. And this really helped me count my squares and keep track of how many squares I needed and how far I had to go. It was really handy. And once I had my orange and black down, I used my yellow since this was a color that helped bring the design out a little more. I wanted it to have a higher pipeline to it. And then as you can see here, this is where I was finishing off the ears for this design. I will leave the link to the design that I found in the description box below. You can always tweak it or use something else. You can make a different design if you like. But since I am currently enjoying Halloween time at Disneyland, I wanted to pay a little tribute to the Winky Blinky Mickey that you see on Main Street. And then here I put the stem on the cake. You can do it in green, you can do it in brown. I like how the green looks, so I just did it this way. And here's a final shot of the cake. And that is how the cross-stitch Mickey pumpkin design looks. And here's also a look inside the cake. The pumpkin cake is very moist and it was absolutely delicious. I hope you enjoyed this recipe. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to suggest something else, leave it in the comment down below. If you want to see pictures of this cake and everything that I've baked, I will leave a link to all my social media in the description box. And I post on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, and that will all be down below. Happy first day of fall, and until next time, stay sweet.